All right. Good late morning and early afternoon, and welcome to Timer Tip Tuesday. I'm Soren Larson, Senior Technical Account Manager and advice person for timers at RunSignup. We'll give folks just another 30 seconds or so to join. The slides from this presentation will be available along with a recording of it afterwards. And speaking of, we are recording this presentation. If you do have any questions, and this is your first time using GoToMeeting, in the interface, there is a questions panel. Those are going to be monitored on the back end. We've got James, Shelley, and Matt Avery there, and we will have some time at the end for questions. So today we are talking about transitioning from RunScore to RaceDay scoring. As a personal note, I used RunScore for 15 years for pretty much everything, and then I transitioned fully to RaceDay scoring. And so I've got some experience with this process, but throughout this presentation, we're also going to have a couple videos of some other timers talking about their experience, because the same as learning RunScore, there's a lot of different ways to transition and a lot of different ways that people have used RunScore. So some different angles to look at as far as what people like about different things, what the transition looks like, and what kind of advice they would give you. So on today's agenda, just a quick introduction to RaceDay scoring, some reasons why you might want to consider changing your scoring software, because I know that's a kind of scary consideration for a lot of folks, especially if you've really come into the industry with one piece of software and are a little nervous to make the jump. It's off season for some folks, so it's a good time now. And then we're going to talk about kind of how you navigate RaceDay scoring from the perspective of someone who's a RunScore user. Talk a little bit about how to transition, and then a little bit about support. So who this is for, this is intended for experienced timers who use RunScore as their main scoring software and are curious about RaceDay scoring. Either maybe you've tried it before and just didn't have time, you know, the season gets away from you, or maybe this is your first time looking at it. So the content is really based around RunScore. This is not a webinar for people who are new to timing on the whole. This is not a webinar for people who haven't used RunScore. So just a note about that. This isn't going to teach you how to be a timer. This is more of a translation course. All right, an introduction to RaceDay scoring. So the next slide here is kind of the quick summary of one of the best reasons to change.
Difficult to learn.
Difficult to teach.
Easy to learn, easy to teach.
All right, I think that would be, as someone who's taught both, a pretty good summary of that. I can probably teach you from soup to nuts RaceDay scoring in an hour. I can teach you where stuff is in RunScore in an hour. So where stuff is in RaceDay scoring, we're just going to go through things real quick so you have a rough idea of what maybe we're talking about and finding your way around. Because one of the hardest things when transitioning to a different piece of scoring software is just finding the different things you need to use. You know, by and large, the concepts of scoring are the same generally across all scoring softwares, but where stuff is and how you do that is the difficult piece here. So on the left-hand side of the RaceDay scoring screen is what we'll call the navigation sidebar there. So the first tab there, and if you are setting up a race, you really do just go top to bottom on that and skipping whatever you don't need. And so that's how we're going to cover this next section, is just top to bottom through these icons. So we have the sync settings. So the home screen is kind of the high level view, and then the sync settings, the next one, is where you set up the bidirectional sync if your registration is on RunSignup. And this is also where you can add custom fields and rename custom questions from RunSignup. The participant and team tab is a high-level view of participants and teams, and this is where you can import, manually add or update entries, or manage the bib chip. So this is more like a high-level view. Maybe the browse screen on RunScore would be the closest analog to this. Streams would be the data streams coming in, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that relates to RunScore next. But just know that this is kind of how you're getting the external data into RaceDay scoring. And then that plays with the next tab, which is locations. And locations are where you start to set the parameters that define what is a valid read or occurrence. Scored events, from a very high level, scored events are your scored events. They can have multiple registration events mapped to them. For example, if you had a 5K and a 5K without t-shirts, they could be in the same scored event. And this is where you can set whether the default sort for reporting would be on chip time or clock time, where you'd set what the finish location is and the start location is. So basically the high level calculation of finish minus start is determined here, or if it's finish minus not a time start, which is a term used here for gun start. Corrals is a little bit higher level setup. One of the cool things about corrals that really isn't as available in RunScore in this concept is the ability to override the general start time with a corral start. So this is a really nice flexible way to do early starters or manage the gun start if you have like an elite field that has a different gun than your citizens field. And then we have segments. Segments would be where you would set up, if it's a road race, like your 5K split, your 10K split, so on-course splits, or segments if it's a triathlon, like your bike, transition 1, your swim, and your run. And then the age group setup. This is something that you're probably more familiar with coming from the entries in RunScore. This is done in this age group and team type tab where you can define age groups really easily. If you have consistent ones that are different, you can actually import those from a JSON file. And this is also where you set some of your awards levels, meaning your overall awards, your masters, and handle your excludes as you would in RunScore using kind of separate files. So this is all in one place here. One thing that's a much higher level concept and a little bit more advanced is the scoring tab. This is where we actually put the listings, which is a familiar term for all of you. This is something that I would say is not something to dive into right away, but as you get familiar with it, this is some really, really complex and also powerful drivers for how events are scored in RaceDay scoring. Then we have the report layer. Now reportings would be your outputs. If you're either printing out a listing, sending it to the editor, or something like that in RunScore. This is where you can also set up the live results auto posting from RaceDay scoring to RunSignup. This is also where you would produce your awards reports and other things like that, which can either auto save, be printed, or post to RunSignup. And that also kind of opens up a lot of ability to send SMS messages, emails if you have RaceJoy integrated. There's a lot that can be done with the automatic live posting here. We also give you a pretty nice high-level view of data issues. So you can just kind of see at a glance, rather than having to write and run a report, you can just see what kind of issues you might have in the data, as well as a log of resolved other issues there. We have another pretty advanced piece here called data actions, and that's sectioned into two different parts: data actions and data checks. Data actions are an automatic move that is made once a condition is met, whereas data check is something with an assessment step. One of the nice parts of this, though, that is not available in RunScore is that you can you're still in the same software. You're not going out to a text editor the same way. So when you do a data check, you can actually go into the participant's entry that you're acting upon, and data actions fire once the condition is met, rather than you having to run an event to database or some other file like that. And then finally, the newest piece here, notifications. This is the area for setting up RaceJoy's integration to use real-time chip data from RaceDay scoring with RaceJoy and participant tracking. Right now, this is a beta feature, but James and Avery have done some really good webinars about that new integration that are worth checking out if you haven't seen them yet. So why RunScore users should try RaceDay scoring? Like they said earlier, easy to learn, easy to teach. If you are a growing company and you are hiring newer timers, it is a much easier tool to get people up to speed on. I know for me, it was really hard to teach someone RunScore, but also find races where I could leave them to their own devices on RunScore. Because there's a lot of hand-holding that happens for the first year, 2 years, 3 years in that. So why try RaceDay scoring? It's modern. It's a menu-based interface. We have the bi-directional sync with RunSignup. If you have registration on RunSignup, there's really no reason not to try RaceDay scoring. The database in RunSignup and RaceDay scoring talk directly to each other, and you're dealing with a single source of truth there. Backup management allows cloud backups to be shared across your timing organization for easy and efficient management of scoring setups, and also for resolution of issues if you're supporting other timers out there in the field for you. The RaceJoy real-time integration, you don't need to use RaceDay scoring as your scoring platform to use the RaceJoy integration, but it works so much easier to use less software. It's a great middleware if you are doing that and using a different piece of software, but why not consolidate and do it all in one spot? Again, easy to teach. And development investment. We invest a lot of time and effort into supporting and improving RaceDay scoring. That's almost weekly updates. We take a lot of feedback from timers, and we listen to you, especially if you're coming from a different scoring software and say, like, this is a thing that I really value that's not here. We want to hear about that from you. That really helps us shape where we're going with things. And then support. We have dedicated support staff 7 days a week. We have one-on-one training. We've got a timer summit coming up. We have a lot of continued education opportunities, as well as webinars like this and the certification program. But don't take my word for it.
Hi, I'm John Burke, owner and operator of Bay State Race Services. We've been in business for 36 years.
Oh, he could have said John and Debbie. I'm Debbie. I'm with him.
I'm Ricky Campbell with Appalachian Timing, also known as AP Timing.
My name is Steve Delahunty. I'm the owner of Novus Mage Technologies. We are a timing company, but we also develop different technology which interfaces in with scoring software, specifically timing clocks and LED panels.
Yeah, so my name's Matt Schreiber. I'm the owner of Advanced Sports Timing based in Cleveland, Ohio. I've been in the timing business since early 2021. And maybe for this webinar, a little rare, I actually started my career in RaceDay scoring.
It came on the computer we rented to time our first race, so we just continued with it.
And it was the best product out there at the time.
RunScore at the time, at least, just had better real-time integration for us. So posting live for that particular event was just much more feasible out of RunScore. So it was really, in that case, picking the tool that best solved that particular event.
The guy who I was timing with was using it, and that's what he trained me with. And so obviously that's the only thing that he was using. So That's the only thing I was using at the time. And then when I started my own timing company, 2014, 2015, I just kind of kept that same system, same application because I was familiar with it.
I remember when I was looking at the options out there. I talked to a lot of people, different timing companies in the local area of New England, and there really were at that time there were only three options available. There was RunScore, there was Race Director, or you built your own. The advice I was given by most timers in the area was to use RunScore because of the macro language capability that enabled someone to customize reports, extend the database with custom fields. Simply put, RunScore was considered to be superior in that it could almost time virtually any race. It was considered more flexible and programmable than the others. And as a software engineer, this naturally intrigued me. And since I was already working with Alan Jones interfacing my timing clock with RunScore, this was a natural choice. Let me just jump to the next one, I guess. What made you change the RDS, right? Yeah, I remember the date. It was I made the decision on April 30th, 2024. And at that time, I was very disappointed with RunScore. It just wasn't what I needed to move my company forward. At that time, I was very successful integrating LED panels in the racing world, showing results over finish lines. I'd already done the Boston Marathon. Novus Mage was getting a name for itself, and I wanted to keep the momentum going.
Well, we haven't changed completely, but because it's easy, it's simple and intuitive to configure for events.
Especially if registration is already on RunSignup.
First downloaded it and messed with it maybe 2 years ago. I can't remember exactly. I basically just downloaded it. I went through the RunSignup class, and it looked pretty simple to use. I think it's a little bit easier for newbies to get trained on.
I've had comments from race directors where they see RunScore running on my computer and they ask why I'm using a Windows 3.1 application and it's 2024. So it's, in my mind, it's bad optics to use something like that. I mean, it works great, but sometimes optics can speak a lot, about a person's business.
Macros, one of my favorite pieces. I will say when we get to RaceDay scoring, I think data checks and data actions kind of start to fill that void, but macros, being able to create a listing file with a number of things all in one place that I can fire off. I like that flexibility.
In 36 years, there has not been anything that we have not been able to time, regardless of its complexity.
Can I add A+ support?
One of my favorite things about RunScore is that you can time virtually any type of race. There are some situations and some races that race directors get really creative when it comes to some sort of weird scoring or multiple event scoring or series scoring. It's much more difficult to do that in other scoring packages. RunScore can handle it. But with RaceDay scoring, it's right there. Race director sticks his head in my van. He goes, "How many people are still out there?" I look at the screen, 6. And oh, by the way, let me run this report. And you've got these built-in reports, and these are the people that are still out there.
One of the things I really like about RaceDay scoring is all the raw reads live in one location, whereas in RunScore, they come into your event. It's a little bit, it's a lot harder to kind of filter through those, whereas kind of on the dashboard in RaceDay scoring, you can filter by reasons it's being ignored, and you can just see a snapshot a little bit easier.
With RaceDay scoring, it's a checkbox. It's so simple to do. The other thing I like about it, when chips aren't being read, RaceDay scoring is very clear.
I like the fact that the registrations come over automatically and go the other way automatically. So the bi-directional interface for the registration, also for the results.
I think your ultras, I love the way that, and I'm actually going to be using it at an event in the spring. I love the way that the lap count shows up and how you can kind of display what lap people are on as they come across.
And the speed of which changes are made.
I do like the fact that RaceDay scoring is obviously connected directly to RunSignup because you have your database right there. You don't have to go in and download anything. It's all connected. They have, you know, people on call and available on the weekends to help if something was to happen.
And it just makes my company look very competent, you know?
Okay, so navigating RaceDay scoring as a RunScore user. So again, I used it in a specific way, and I think that one of the things that that video highlighted is that RunScore has a lot of power and flexibility, which means there's a lot of different ways that people might use it, and it might differ region to region, company to company, person to person. So some of this is a little bit more general and more about navigation and how to do some of the basic things so that you can apply that to your workflow. So first and foremost, importing a database. And here, you know how to import a database, just file import and map. I'm highlighting how it comes in from RunSignup. So if you haven't done this before, you would log into your RunSignup account, then you would select a race, and then you would either download all events or selected events, and then map fields as needed. So again, there's some one-to-one mapping set up here. And actually the process in RaceDay scoring is relatively similar in that you're logged in, you choose your future race, you go to the sync, and then you bring in the data. The difference between the two is that once you've enabled that sync, RaceDay scoring and RunSignup are talking to each other. In RunScore, you do have to download the updates. You can also push back up with RunScore as well. Another very important piece is the BibChip file. So in RunScore, you're most likely loading your BibChip file as a CSV somewhere in your RunScore folder, and then using entries ini as a lookup for that. In RaceDay scoring, you would be doing that from the participant tab. So again, you're using a two-column CSV, bib and chip, and then importing that here. There's a couple extra steps that you can do if there's an IPCO or other kind of format there, but there's specific support for that. We're going to keep this a little bit more general. Streams in RunScore is what we call streams in RaceDay scoring. In RunScore, it's an external timer. And you might be doing a single stream from that you are taking from a TCP connection. You might be actually loading a file manually as well. There's a number of different ways to skin that particular cat, but at the same time, you are doing it by initializing an external timer. And then you are mapping those streams externally to result locations in RunScore. In RaceDay scoring, we take streams as the external data, and think of it more as like almost a hose of just sending the data to RaceDay scoring, and then we're setting some parameters that dictate what's used and what's not used. One thing that I think was highlighted in one of those videos, and that we'll touch on in a moment, is that in RunScore, you're really only seeing the reads that would be used. If it's a start location, taking the last seen read, that would continually overwrite itself up until if you set a stop parameter on that location. Whereas in RaceDay scoring, we're still taking all of the reads, but whether or not they'd be considered is determined by the parameter. So RaceDay scoring if you change those parameters, you're not having to replay the reads. It will just change what is considered valid or not. In RunScore, you would have to pass that through the external timer or reload the time file. Locations in RunScore. This is something where you're actually going to see a lot of similarities, and that's kind of the purpose of some of this here, is showing you where you might find something, you know, as you're looking to set things up. As you can see here, the start location is allowing times between 7 o'clock and 7:15. Again, the difference between RunScore and RaceDay scoring is that all reads will come into RaceDay scoring. In RunScore, that really determines what's going to be allowed into that event. Again, RunScore, it's called an event. RaceDay scoring, this is the comparison would be the location. So we have these locations here where you can determine what kind of location it is, same as editing your events in RunScore, determining if it's a finish or split, if it's a start, if it's an announcer, and then setting time parameters there. We have gap factor, and again, there are ways to do a lot of this in RunScore. The main thing I want to highlight here is that the big difference is teachability, scalability, and you know, this is a file-based, or sorry, a menu-based system, which is much easier for someone new to this to navigate. So even if you are still a RunScore timer who doesn't really want to change, if you're looking to hire and expand your company, I would really encourage you to start looking at RaceDay scoring as a tool for doing that, because you're going to have a much longer runway to get someone to take off on their own with RunScore. So. And then age groups. This is another one that for me was one of the nicest pieces in RaceDay scoring. I think it really blew my mind. Having written God knows how many listings, these are my actual files. I'm trying to do a one-to-one comparison for my RunScore file to my RaceDay scoring file for these, so you can kind of see what that looks like. This is the RaceDay scoring setup for that, where you'd go into top finishers and you can determine those overall. You know, one of the things that's really great is band jumping, or excludes, as you might call it in RunScore. It's a checkbox instead of, you know, several files run in a macro. And then the age range setup, I just determine the range, and I can input if there's some variation in them, but it's, you know, 3 buttons and I'm done with that, and I can copy it to all my other events instead of having to write a lot more files. Database setup in RunScore. So this would be your design screen where you're determining what fields are in there. I'm not sure if that was in the video or not, but Steve Delahunty talks about one of the great things about RunScore is being able to extend the database. And I really agree with that. I did a lot of work when I was using RunScore, extending the database and filling in different pieces. You know, you can see here, I'm highlighting who's a pacer, and that wasn't in the registration, or who's on a certain team that wasn't in the database that needed to be pulled in externally. I can extend that database to do all of these things in RunScore via the design screen. And you might think, well, how do I do that if there's, you know, if I'm not going into the registration and adding custom questions as a timer? The answer to that is custom fields in RaceDay scoring. So custom fields are what you can use to extend the database here. So you can see that we have the pacer field is highlighted here, whether or not someone's going to use iTab, or whether someone is in the wheelchair category. All of that can be done either with the custom questions coming down from RunSignup, or internally in the software as custom fields, and that would be how you'd extend the database here. Database entries in RunScore. Again, this might be vary from company to company. You can see here I wrote times, raw times, to the database as well as the calculated ones. So you can see registration information, and then the times there, but that had to be written to the entries using an event to database. In RaceDay scoring, the participant entry is kind of almost a three-piece area. One would be in the bottom left there, what you see, that's the registration data for that participant. And that's going to be the questions coming down from RunSignup or your external registration platform that you've imported from. And that's also going to be where your custom fields are. The second piece is kind of in the background there, and that's where you set the status of the participant. Rather than having to write your own DQ field, we give you the ability to determine if someone's disqualified, dropped, or does not qualify. And you can also see on the right there, the timing location raw reads, as well as the segment times and the listing placements. So it'd be the age group placements. So all of that is built there for you, as long as you build the segments and that set the age groups, obviously. But you're not having to run an event to database to see all of this and determine it. The third piece isn't shown here, but that would be the ability to go into the raw reads and see the raw reads for that participant. So raw reads and RunScore, again, this is coming from the locations, and you're able to go into each location and look at these. But they are the used reads, the used read for this. Versus in RaceDay scoring, we have a number of different places you can get to the raw reads. And again, going back to that big difference, and I think for me, this is a very difficult philosophical thing to wrap my head around. One is that red is not bad here. Red does not mean warning. Red means ignored. Red means not used. But beyond that, it actually tells you why it's not used. And I think that's a really important difference, because you can just see at a glance, oh, okay, here's why this wasn't used. And you can actually go through all of these raw reads and filter them. You can filter them all in one spot by participant, by a timing location, by a reason it's not used, by an event, by a stream. There are so many different ways to look at this data holistically. And I think that is both the hardest thing to wrap your head around as a RunScore user, because you're used to going in and kind of doing some detective work. Instead of playing Clue and going to different rooms, it's all kind of laid out for you right here. And that's really nice, but that's also kind of intimidating at first. So what I would recommend is, as you're transitioning, spending some time in the raw reads and understanding how that's different is going to be a really big step for being comfortable making that change. And that's also probably going to be your best friend, because you're not having to jump back to middleware if you're using it.
And these are the pre-filters, so without you even having to do your filters, you can just select on these, and they're already like pre-filtered for these different reasons.
Yeah, I always tell people when I'm training them, you want to see ignored reads. If you don't see ignored reads, something might be wrong. So reports in RunScore, listing files. There's a lot of flexibility in how you write those. In that, you can determine how many records per page. You can build all these fields, their lengths, which is both a blessing and a curse. I find it fun and I find it creative to do this. I also find it a giant pain to test if it's going to look the way I want it to look when it outputs. And it's also going to be, is that field going to fit? Is something going to break? Where did it break? In an interview piece that didn't make it onto this, it was called quiet quitting or quiet failure. Is you don't know that it didn't do what you wanted it to. So you have to do some investigation. Whereas in RaceDay scoring for our reporting, when you save scored events and you save age groups right out of the box, if you look in that lower left-hand corner, I didn't build those. The system built those. You can go out of the box and have the basic overall reports and age group reports just by setting up your race and RaceDay scoring. I haven't timed it, but I would say you could probably make the whole process from a simple 5-10K in 3 to 5 minutes, and that's with checking your work. But if you look over in the columns, you have this ability to add different columns there, change what columns are there, change the name of those columns. You can even create your own templates if there's something that you do frequently and export those across your entire timing company. Yes, quick publish and auto publish. The reports is also where you enable the auto save to RunSignup. This drives your live results. And right out of the box, you can do just overall and have live results going to RunSignup. You can build leaderboards. That's a really nice one to build. You can have split progress. You can have team results going. You can export these in other formats, whether it's a scrolling HTML that you want to put on a display board, or a CSV that someone is looking at from a Dropbox somewhere else. Maybe your metal engravers have access to that. Or you just have your reports ready to go and fire off as soon as you're done, rather than having to run these listings individually. Filtering in RunScore, it's a series of selects under conditions. This is another one where, because you're not writing it the same way, you're not physically writing it, you're doing menu driven, it's important to understand this difference. On the left here, we're saying, okay, we want them to not be DQ'd, we want them to not have a value in the pacer field, and we want the sex to be F for female. And then we're going to sort this by chip time. So event minus chip start, sort. In RaceDay scoring, this would look like this. So it's sorted. I think I sorted that by clock time by accident. But this is saying that they're not a pacer and that gender is female. We're showing non-finishers on here, but by default, disqualified participants are not shown. So transitioning to RaceDay scoring. 3 steps is a very simplified version of this, but basically rescore races that you scored already. We can go to the next slide. So this is a kind of 5 steps, so we'll expand this. First step, download RaceDay scoring. Pretty straightforward. You can download a demo version. We do ask you that you be a little bit respectful of that. We do see the stats, but you can download a fully functional demo version to give it a try. Getting certified is another great way to navigate and just walk through the setup of a simple 5K. Once you've done that, if you're comfortable there, go for it. If you want to dive in for a more specific setup, or just go through the race that you're about to try to score with RaceDay scoring, or rescore a race with someone, set up a one-on-one training with us. And then rescore an old race, either by yourself or in that training. And rescore a couple races, just more than anything, so you get comfortable and used to where everything is. And then move to scoring a race in parallel, meaning using RunScore and RaceDay scoring at the same time, because that gives you the ability to fall back on what you know. If something hits the fan, if someone at a different race needs your attention and support, if you just are in a tough spot and you just don't have the bandwidth to do both. And then finally, go all in. So the timer certification program, again, this link is going to be in the slides, which will be given to you in an email later. But go through your certification program if you haven't already. You may already have some of those. Just a note that we do highlight the 4 certification timers. They're shown first in the timer search on our platform there. So the 4 certificates are RaceDay scoring, RaceJoy, RunSignup, and RaceDay check-in. I would really encourage you to get all 4 if you haven't. If nothing else, RaceDay scoring is going to get you started pretty well. Booking one-on-one training, again, there's a link right there. If you, as a whole organization, are looking at moving over, we also do group trainings. We do ask that you do 2 bookings for that. One to just talk through your process and workflow, and give me a little bit of time to set up something specific to how you do things, and then we can record a training with your group that you can use for new timers in the future, or people who couldn't make the initial training. We can kind of fly through these next couple slides, but in your timer account, you have the ability to download RaceDay scoring and also pay for the license there. Quick note, it's only one license is needed per timing company that's shared across the whole timing company there. And the licenses are on a yearly basis, on a 1-year basis. So we can just fly through the next couple slides there.
You want to mention $199 right now is per annual year.
Yep, $199 a year for all of your company and all of the computers in your company there. So quick note on how to rescore races. What you will need, the original participant database or suitable pseudo database alternative. You'll need the reads from the original race. If you have the original middleware file, if that's something you use, the original read file, if it's read lite or if it's a Trident file or if it's a log file. Flat files are great, middleware files are great. It's really good to be comfortable with connecting to your hardware both ways. As I'm sure you know as a RunScore user, sometimes the direct stream is not the way to go and that's crashing out and you need to load the files. It's always good to have the original result sets. If you don't have them, not the end of the world, but it's nice to go apples to apples because you really want to be doing this like Jeopardy and have the answer and go back from there and make sure that the question is right. And then RaceDay scoring. Some good races to rescore. Starting with the simple one and then getting complex is a really good way to do that. Recent races are my personal favorite because you're going to remember things a little bit better as far as like, oh, I had to manually add a read here. Oh, this person switched races. Oh, I had this issue here. Because it gives you, a reason to actually go and do the moves that you need to do on race day and practice them. Races that have a frequently used setup for you. If you do a lot of triathlons, triathlon is a really good race to do. If you use a universal start finish at most of your races, practice with the universal start finish. And as you're looking at these races to rescore, doing races that you are going to score using RaceDay scoring next year. Because then you can easily renew the setup and not have to do all the work again next year after you've done it learning. So the important part of this is getting participants in from a CSV. This is also how you would import participants who are on another registration platform or the dreaded Google Sheet. You'd go into that participant tab, you'd import them. It'll be a pretty familiar process to you rather than a prompt for each field for mapping like you would have in RunScore. It's just a drop-down menu. There's some help and solution articles at the bottom that are linked there that walk you through these steps. But again, we will let you know what didn't work, if there's invalid characters, if you're missing something. The external reference ID that James is highlighting right here, that would be your unique participant ID, your registration ID, your primary key from your external software. If you bring one of those in and you have to update participants later, it's a really good way to do that because we will look at that for updating rather than having to wipe out the database completely and bring it in fresh. Creating a file stream. So this is probably the most common way that you're going to bring in reads for a race that you're rescoring. So this would be going down to streams and adding a stream, and you're probably going to do it as a file stream type. I would recommend, for the sake of time and brevity, reading this as a step-by-step because you do want to be very familiar with bringing in a file type stream. A number of systems will use them. And also most timers will use them as their backup from the middleware post-race. So that's a very useful tool just in general to have, but especially as you're rescoring, that's probably how you're getting your reads from old races. So to do this in the streams, new stream, you do file, customer chip system type, and then you would put it to the folder path. A quick note on that. Generally speaking, for this, I would really recommend only having that stream, that file, or files for that location that you want to use it for, or that stream you want to use it for in that folder. So just a note there, if your file does not contain the normal format of an output system, like a read-lite or a simple client, you can build your own format. Basically, if you can give us the bib or chip and a timestamp, and it's in a consistently delineated format, we'll take it. Yep, and but if not, you can set an external date. And then up in the upper right-hand corner, the Get Help button. Get Help is your best friend. Get Help does not just mean it's race day, things are bad. Get Help is a proactive thing as well. We spend a lot of time during the week checking people's setups for races that are upcoming, especially if they're new to the software. They say like, hey, this is how I usually did it in my old scoring software. This is what I'm trying to do. We look at that. We give you very detailed direction for what you should be doing. If we see something that's wrong, if we're asking like, are you trying to do this? We're very responsive. And again, help, I think, is one of our big differentiators. And it's available 7 days a week. So Get Help is great. Even if you are someone who really prefers a different kind of interaction, always start with Get Help, because we want to see what you're seeing. Some testimonials or directions from other people about how they transitioned and what they recommend.
Trying to, if the schedule lines up, pick and choose a simple event to play around with it, score with RaceDay scoring and the application that you're used to. That way you can kind of build trust in the second application. And if you get uneasy or you feel like something's not doing what it should be doing, you can just drop it and just score on your main application instead.
We only scored in parallel once, and then from there on, it's been any that we have scored in RaceDay scoring was with that product only.
I mean, I would score it in parallel. I'd probably start by Sunday scoring would be the first thing. So I take a race that you've scored, results are good, play out of your middleware into RaceDay scoring and see if you can get the results to match up. Do that with a basic event, something, single distance, no splits, figure out, how do I DQ somebody? How do I change an age group report? Any of those sort of things. I'd recommend going through that like Sunday scoring for a few races.
If you're looking to make the switch, take an older event, try to time it with RaceDay scoring. Try to do that a few times with other races. Time with RunScore and then retime with the RaceDay scoring, and I think the results will speak for themselves. It'll grow your confidence level. I think you realize that it'll make your job easier and produce better results. And then finally take the leap.
So one thing that we really want to highlight is help and support, whether that's the certification courses, onboarding, how to, ongoing training, and just all the different ways that we can support you as timers. I'm going to let them say it, but I don't think it can be said enough, whether you're just starting, whether you've been using RaceDay scoring for years, whether you probably know more about RaceDay scoring than I might, support's there, because there's every reason in the world to use it.
The other aspect is, as Soren outlined, we have 5 developers working on this piece of software, and it's been going on for quite a few years, and we're putting out releases every week. And so definitely, if you have a question, you see something new, some new button or something, send a question in support. We can kind of explain to you what our evolutionary process is there, and maybe you have some input about how we're evolving the product.
Just the support documentation, the onboarding process, and the weekend support there's just a lot more of that with RunSignup RaceDay scoring. So just specifically from kind of a business owner trying to grow a team, that barrier to entry for a new timer, I just think is lower.
Like the class was beneficial. They're very basic walkthrough of how to set up an event. Some of the questions were pretty simplified, but the class was very easy to walk through a simple event.
But the number one thing I do like about RaceDay Scoring is the level of support. I can't believe how incredible you guys are. My very first race, in fact, the one that happened, my very first one was RaceDay Scoring. I ran into an issue. I wasn't actually sure. I couldn't get the top, finishes displayed. And, I clicked on the help button in RaceDay Scoring and, filled my name and, quick description of what I'm looking for. RaceDay Scoring got back to me within 10 minutes with details on exactly, with arrows and pictures on exactly what to click to get what I need to be done. I even sent another question. I forgot what the question was. But anyway, they got back again within about 10 minutes. It's unbelievable level of support. So that alone has convinced me that RaceDay Scoring is the way to go for me. And even my team too. Like if they're out in a field, the first person to call is me, obviously. And if I don't know how to do it, then just click on the help button and run sign up or RaceDay Scoring. We'll get back to you right away.
All right. So on that note, again, just highlighting the certification program again is a good place to get started. Next slide is how to use in-product help. So this would be if on the RunSignup side of things, we have help there too. That is monitored 7 days a week. Here's some support contacts. If you don't already have them, RunSignup support would be info@runsignup.com. RaceDay Scoring specific is raceday@runsignup.com. And you can also schedule training with me if you want to talk RunScore further. And then finally, we do have our Timer Education Summit coming up shortly in January. We have a couple different tracks here, introductory and advanced, as well as a product demo room and a morning run. If you're thinking about doing this, I would highly encourage you to register now. We have limited spots left, and those are the ones that we just reopened today. We will be adding a wait list to that once those sell out. But this is going very, very quickly, and we're very excited about this. We're taking a lot of feedback from our previous universities and meetings to kind of build this in a way that is hopefully what you want.
Yeah, definitely very different. If you attended the last two kind of timer tour and the university that we did over the summer, we really are changing this. It's going to be much more in depth, 2 different tracks. So again, if you have a new timer that is just really needing to get certified and learn stuff, or you're a more advanced timer, we'll have a very different track for you. So definitely a very different experience than we've had the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm. So with that, if there's any questions, now would be a great time. But the big thing that we want you to take away from this is just you don't have to ditch RunScore, but it's really good to have more tools in your toolbox. And I think this is a great one that is very, very modern and forward thinking and just going to continue to grow. Can you speak to the auto live publication methods and capabilities of RSD? James, do you want to take that one, or just on the high level, setting up the reports is pretty straightforward, and you can also preview those, but go ahead.
A couple options right out of the box that you're going to want to look at, and we call them autosave settings. The autosave settings are not just for publishing the RunSignup. You can do very customized things there in terms of like exporting HTML or CSV that will be used with your external systems for driving display boards, driving an external screen that's actually showing stuff in real time. So that's something you may want to explore a little bit. Another thing that is involved in our product offering is what we call kiosk technology. And our kiosk technology is pretty rich also. So you can set up what's called a server to client, 2 pieces of software. They're both RaceDay Scoring. The main server, which is the one that's scoring, is going to be your hub, and you can actually publish and send out these different displays that you were trying to do and have those displayed in different places using a different client piece of software. So a couple different options there. One is just straight autosaves going out to some kind of Dropbox, Google Drive, HTML sync that you're doing and displaying that on different display technologies. Another is using our kiosk technology and actually just using our screens with the kiosk and showing those in different formats. So a couple things there to explore. But this is an area I will say there's a lot of excitement around. We're working with some different partners. I would say in 2025, you're going to see even more traction in RaceDay scoring and how we work with driving displays and different types of things that we're going to be working on. So that's definitely an area that we're going to be focusing development on in 2025. But yeah, definitely if you're needing to get your stuff out to another platform, there should be something there for you to get going with out of the gate.
All right. I think that's what we're seeing. So thank you again. Happy Timer Tip Tuesday and happy upcoming holidays.
So I hope you enjoyed that webinar. Now Joel here, one of our developers, has something he wants to say.
Like and subscribe. Don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button. Hello, Internet. I'm here.
I should just have you record that for all the videos.